Thanks for clicking on this video. I really appreciate you being here. If you enjoy the story, consider subscribing and feel free to like the video or drop a comment below. It really helps the algorithm recommend these videos to you and to others who might enjoy them too. Either way, thanks for giving it a chance, and I hope it pulls you in. I still feel it sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet and the world is still. A lightness in my chest, a gentle tug somewhere deep in my gut, like my body remembers what it felt like to fall upward, and part of me never stopped falling. The doctors say it is anxiety, post-traumatic stress, my nervous system still on high alert after what happened. Maybe they are right, but when I feel that pull, I grip my mattress and hold on until my knuckles turn white, because I know what happens when gravity decides it does not want you anymore. It started on a Friday evening in early October, around 7:30. I had just gotten home from work, exhausted after a long week on the construction site. My name is Ryan Marsh, and I am a foreman for a company that builds commercial properties out in the county. It is hard work, the kind that leaves your muscles aching and your mind too tired to think about much of anything except dinner and sleep. That Friday had been particularly brutal. 12 hours of pouring concrete foundations in weather that could not decide if it wanted to be summer or fall. I live alone in a small house on the outskirts of Crestwood, a rural town surrounded by farmland and forest. Population maybe 3,000 on a good day. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone and nothing much ever happens. The kind of town where the big news is who won the pie contest at the county fair, or whether the high school football team will make it to regionals this year. I had lived there for about 5 years, ever since my divorce, and I liked the quiet. The anonymity of a big city had never appealed to me. I wanted to know my neighbors, wanted to wave at people on the street, wanted to feel like I belonged somewhere. My only company was Duke, a German shepherd I had raised from a puppy. He was 9 years old that October, grey around the muzzle, slower than he used to be, a little stiff in the mornings when he got up from his bed, but he was still my best friend in the world, still followed me from room to room, still rested his head on my knee when I sat down to watch television. I could not imagine my life without him. That Friday evening, I was sitting on the couch with Duke at my feet, watching some game show on television and thinking about whether I wanted to heat up leftover pizza or just go to bed early. The house was quiet, except for the television and the occasional sigh from Duke as he shifted in his sleep. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink through my living room window. It was the most ordinary evening imaginable, the kind of night where nothing is supposed to happen. Then every device in my house went off at once. My phone started blaring that emergency alert tone, the one that sounds like the end of the world, the one that makes your heart stop no matter how many times you hear it. The television switched to the emergency broadcast screen, that harsh red and white pattern with the scrolling text. Even the old weather radio on my kitchen counter, the one I kept around for tornado season and had not thought about in months, started squawking. Duke jumped up and started barking, then immediately went quiet, his ears flat against his head. He looked at me with wide eyes, and I swear I could see fear in them. Real fear, the kind that goes beyond instinct into something deeper. He knew something was wrong before I did. Dogs always do. I grabbed my phone and looked at the alert. It said there was an atmospheric anomaly approaching the Crestwood area and all residents should seek shelter immediately. Then came the part that made me laugh out loud, because surely this had to be some kind of joke, some glitch in the system, some bored teenager who had hacked into the emergency broadcast network. Beware. Reverse gravity. I read it 3 times, certain I was misunderstanding something. Reverse gravity. That was not a real thing. That was science fiction, comic book nonsense, the kind of thing that happened in movies about superheroes and alternate dimensions. Gravity does not reverse. Gravity is a constant, one of the fundamental forces of the universe. It pulls things down. That is what gravity does. That is what it has always done since the beginning of time. I tried to change the channel, but the alert was on every station. Local news, cable networks, even the shopping channels. All of them showing that same red and white screen, that same impossible warning scrolling across the bottom. I checked my phone and found the same alert, along with dozens of text messages from friends and co-workers. Everyone was asking the same thing. Are you seeing this? Is this real? What the hell is going on? Duke was pacing now, whining, circling the living room, like he was looking for somewhere to hide. He kept glancing at the ceiling, then at me, then back at the ceiling. I had never seen him act like that before. Not even during the worst thunderstorms. Not even when the tornado sirens went off last spring. I decided to step outside and check the sky, see if there was anything unusual going on. Some part of me still thought this was all a mistake, a prank, something that would be explained away by morning. Some part of me still believed in a rational world where gravity stayed where it was supposed to. I walked out onto my back porch and looked around. The evening seemed normal at first. Clear sky overhead, stars just beginning to appear as the last light faded from the west. A cool autumn breeze rustled through the trees at the edge of my property, carrying the smell of dried leaves and distant wood smoke. Somewhere down the road, I could hear a dog barking. Crickets were chirping in the grass. Everything was exactly as it should be. Then I noticed something wrong with those trees. The leaves were moving upward, not falling, not drifting sideways in the wind, but rising. Dead leaves that had been scattered on the ground were lifting off the grass and floating up into the branches. Slowly at first, then faster. Dozens of them, hundreds of them. A river of brown and orange flowing the wrong direction. As I watched, a single brown leaf rose from the porch railing beside me, spinning slowly as it drifted up into the darkness above. It did not fall. It rose, getting smaller and smaller until I lost sight of it against the stars. I felt something twist in my stomach, a sensation like going over a hill too fast in a car, like that moment on a roller coaster when your insides seem to float inside your body. For just a second, I felt lighter than I should have, like I weighed less than I had a moment before, like something was pulling at me from above. Duke was in the doorway behind me, barking frantically, refusing to step outside. His claws scraped against the threshold as he backed away, his whole body trembling. I backed up slowly, unable to take my eyes off the leaves that were still rising from my lawn. Dozens of them now. Hundreds. A reverse autumn, the trees reclaiming what they had lost. I went inside and closed the door. I told myself there had to be an explanation, some kind of weird air current, a thermal anomaly, something weather-related that science could explain. Maybe there was a pressure system moving through, something that created an updraft strong enough to lift dead leaves. That was possible, right? That was something that could happen in the real world. I grabbed my phone and called my friend Pete Dawson, who lived on the other side of town. Pete and I had worked together for years before he retired, and he was the most level-headed person I knew. Nothing rattled Pete. He had served in the military, raised 3 kids, survived a heart attack at 52. If anyone could make sense of this, it would be Pete. He answered on the second ring, and I could tell immediately that something was wrong. His voice was shaking. Pete's voice never shook. Ryan, are you seeing this? Things are floating in my house. Papers, dust, the TV remote just lifted off the coffee table and hit the ceiling. What the hell is happening? I do not know, I said. The alert said something about reverse gravity. But that is not possible, right? That cannot be a real thing. Linda went outside, Pete said, and his voice cracked. She went to check on the chickens about 10 minutes ago and she is not answering her phone. I tried to go after her, but I can barely walk, Ryan. It is like the ground is pushing me away. I feel like I'm going to float off my own feet. Stay inside, I said. Do not go outside, Pete. Just stay inside and hold on to something solid. I need to find Linda. She is out there somewhere. She might be hurt. Pete, listen to me. If you go outside, you might fall. Do you understand? You might fall upward. Just stay inside and wait. Linda is smart. She will find shelter. I heard a crash through the phone. The sound of something heavy hitting the floor. Or maybe hitting the ceiling. Then Pete screamed. A sound I will never forget as long as I live. A sound of pure terror and disbelief. It was the sound of a man watching the impossible happen. Then the line went dead. I tried to call back. Nothing. Not even a ring. Not even voicemail. Just silence. Like the call was going nowhere. Like there was nothing on the other end to receive it. I looked around my living room and noticed that the water in Duke's bowl was behaving strangely. The surface was not flat anymore. It was bulging upward, like something was pulling it from above, like the water wanted to escape the bowl and rise towards the ceiling. A single drop lifted free and floated upward, catching the lamplight as it rose. Small objects around the house started to shift. Pens rolled toward the edges of tables and then lifted off, floating slowly upward like tiny balloons. Papers slid off surfaces and drifted toward the ceiling like lazy birds. Dust motes that had been invisible a moment before now caught the lamplight as they rose. Thousands of tiny particles floating up instead of down. The throw pillows on my couch were lifting at the corners, straining against the cushions. The pull got stronger. I could feel it now, not just in my stomach, but in my whole body. I felt lighter with every passing second, like I was standing on the moon, like the earth had decided it did not want me anymore. Duke pressed himself flat against the carpet, his claws digging into the fibers, whining in terror. He knew what was coming even before I did. I grabbed the kitchen counter just as my feet left the floor. The sensation was beyond anything I can describe. My body wanted to fall upward. Every cell in me pulled towards the ceiling, like it was the new ground. I gripped the counter with both hands, my arms straining, my feet dangling above the floor that was rapidly becoming the ceiling. The veins in my forearms stood out as I held on, my muscles screaming with the effort. Everything in my house that was not bolted down began to rise. Chairs lifted off the floor and tumbled upward. Books flew off shelves and hit the ceiling with dull thuds. The remote control Pete had mentioned hit my ceiling hard enough to crack the drywall. The fruit bowl on my counter rose past my face, apples and oranges spinning slowly as they ascended. A coffee mug shattered against the ceiling, spraying ceramic shards that floated in the air like shrapnel. My grip slipped. I fell upward, hit the ceiling hard, the impact knocking the wind out of me. For a moment, I just lay there, stunned, unable to process what had happened. The textured ceiling dug into my cheek. I could see my living room below me, furniture scattered across what used to be the floor, everything wrong, everything inverted. Then I realized I was standing on my ceiling, looking down at my floor, my entire world completely inverted. The ceiling texture dug into my palms as I pushed myself up. Light fixtures hung upward like strange plants, and I had to step around them carefully. The ceiling fan was below me now, its blade still, a hazard I had to avoid. The world had turned upside down, and I was walking on top of it. Duke had risen too. He was scrambling in the air, legs churning, unable to find purchase on anything, whimpering in confusion and fear. I grabbed him and pulled him close to my chest, feeling his heart hammering against my arms. He weighed almost nothing now, lighter than a pillow, lighter than air. I crawled to a window and looked out, and what I saw will haunt me for the rest of my life. The world was upside down. The ground was above me now, the sky below. Trees hung downward from the earth, their roots exposed to the air, their branches reaching towards the stars like fingers grasping at nothing. Houses stood inverted, their roofs at the bottom, their foundations at the top, windows glowing with light from survivors trapped inside. The streets were empty because all the cars had fallen off them, dropped into the infinite sky below. And the people, I could see them falling, tumbling upward into the darkness, arms flailing, legs kicking, mouths open in screams I could not hear through the glass. Some of them were trying to grab onto things, onto trees and fences and mailboxes, anything solid. But the pull was too strong. One by one, they lost their grip and rose, getting smaller and smaller as they fell into the sky, until they were just dots against the stars. And then they were gone. I watched a man I recognized from the hardware store rise past my window. He was maybe 50 feet up when I saw him, already too far gone to save. His eyes met mine for just a second, wide with terror, and I saw his mouth, forming words I could not hear. Then he was past me, falling up and up and up until I could not see him anymore. I watched a woman clutching a tree branch, her legs dangling toward the stars, her arms wrapped around the wood so tight I could see her muscles straining even from this distance. She held on for maybe 30 seconds. Then the branch snapped and she was gone. I watched a teenage boy tumbling through the air, not screaming, not flailing, just falling with his eyes closed, like he had already accepted what was happening. He rose through my field of vision and kept going, getting smaller and smaller until he was indistinguishable from the stars themselves. I do not know how long I stood there, watching. Minutes, maybe. It felt like hours. The world had turned inside out, and all I could do was witness it. A pounding sound snapped me out of my daze. Someone was banging on my front door, which was now above me, set into what had become my ceiling. "Ryan! Ryan! Are you in there? Please, help me!" I recognized the voice. It was Clara Webb, my neighbor, a woman in her 70s who lived alone in the house next door. Her husband, Gerald, had passed a few years back, a heart attack while he was mowing the lawn, and she had lived alone ever since. I tried to check on her when I could, help with yard work, shovel her driveway in the winter, make sure she was doing okay. I made my way across the ceiling to the front door, which now opened downward like a hatch. I grabbed the handle and pulled, and Clara tumbled through the opening, barely catching herself on the doorframe before she could fall back out into the inverted world. I grabbed her arm and pulled her inside, and we both collapsed on the ceiling, breathing hard. "I was in my basement when it started," Clara said, her voice thin and shaky. "That is the only reason I did not fall. I felt the pull and I grabbed onto the water heater, and I held on until it stopped getting stronger. Then I crawled up here." "You crawled from your basement to my house?" "The houses are connected now, in a way. The basements are at the top, the attics at the bottom. I went through my basement window and climbed across to your foundation." She was trembling, her white hair wild, her eyes red from crying. "I saw Gerald's old car fall out of the garage. It just dropped into the sky, getting smaller and smaller until it disappeared. The car he drove for 30 years, the car I could not bring myself to sell after he passed. It is gone now. Clara, what is happening? What is doing this?" She looked at me with eyes that had seen too much in one night. "I do not know. I do not think anyone knows." We were trapped. I understood that now with a cold certainty that settled into my bones. If we went outside, we would fall upward into the sky, just like everyone else. Just like Pete's wife Linda, just like the man from the hardware store, just like the dozens of people I had watched rise into the darkness and disappear. The house was protecting us, holding us against what used to be the ceiling, shielding us from the inverted gravity. But I could hear the structure groaning around us, feel the house shifting and settling in ways it was never meant to. Ceilings are not designed to bear weight. The drywall was starting to crack, the support beams creaking under the strain. We needed to find somewhere more secure. "The bathroom," I said. "The bathroom has tile floors, stronger support underneath. We should go there." Clara nodded, too frightened to argue. I picked up Duke, who had calmed down slightly but was still shaking, and we began to make our way through my inverted house. Every step felt wrong, my brain screaming at me that I was walking on the ceiling, that this was impossible, that gravity did not work this way. But it did now, at least here, at least tonight. We made it to the bathroom and closed the door behind us. The toilet and sink were above us now, useless, the pipes groaning as water tried to flow in the wrong direction. Water dripped upward from the faucet, rising toward the drain that was now at the top. but the floor beneath us felt more solid than the living room ceiling had, and I allowed myself to feel a small measure of relief. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Somehow I had managed to hold on to it through everything. I pulled it out and saw my brother's name on the screen. Will? Ryan, thank God. Are you okay? I have been trying to call for an hour. I am alive, I said. I am in my house with a neighbor. We are trapped inside. If we go out, we fall. I know. I am watching the news. They are showing footage of Crestwood and a bunch of other small towns. Gravity inversions, they are calling them. Localized to specific areas. Ryan, there are videos of people falling into the sky. It is all over the internet. I saw it, I said. I watched it happen. Will, people are dying. People are falling up, and they are not coming back. Will was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I'm going to drive out there. I'm going to find a way to help. No, the word came out harder than I intended. Will, no. If you enter the affected area, you will fall too. There is nothing you can do. Stay where you are, please. I cannot just sit here and do nothing while my brother might be dying. I am not dying. I am hiding. That is all I can do right now. Please, Will, stay away. I need you to stay alive. The line crackled, distorted, and then went dead. I did not know if he heard me. I did not know if it would matter. Through the bathroom window, I could see lights in some of the other houses. Other survivors, people who had been inside when the gravity flipped, people who had found something to hold on to. But I could also see houses that were dark, houses with shattered windows, houses where furniture and belongings and darker shapes had spilled out into the sky. Clara saw where I was looking. That is the Morrison house, she said quietly. Young family, the parents and two little ones, a boy and a girl. The little girl just started kindergarten this year. I used to see her waiting for the school bus in the mornings, wearing her backpack that was almost as big as she was. She did not say anything else. She did not have to. We sat in the bathroom for hours, listening to the house groan around us, watching the cracks slowly spread across the ceiling beneath our feet. Clara talked to fill the silence, telling me about her life, about her husband Gerald, who had been a carpenter, about her children who had moved away to the city years ago and rarely visited, about the garden she had planted every spring for 40 years. Gerald built this whole neighborhood, she said. Back in the 60s, before we were even married, he was so proud of these houses, said they would stand for 100 years. She laughed, a bitter sound. I guess they are standing, just not the way he imagined. I listened, because there was nothing else to do, because her voice was the only thing keeping me from losing my mind. Around midnight, we heard something new, a low, rumbling sound, constant and deep, coming from above us, from what used to be the ground. I looked out the window and saw something that made my blood freeze. The earth was cracking. Huge fissures were opening up in the ground above us, splitting the inverted landscape like a broken mirror. And through those cracks, I could see light. Not daylight, not street lights, but something else entirely. A sickly greenish glow that pulsed and flickered, coming from somewhere beyond the broken earth. Something behind the world, something that had been hidden until gravity turned inside out The cracks spread like veins across the visible landscape, and wherever they opened, more things fell through. Soil and rocks and trees, anything not anchored, tumbling down into the sky below, into the hungry dark. Clara grabbed my arm. "Something is pulling," she said. "Not just pulling things up, pulling them towards something specific." "What do you mean?" "Think about it, Ryan. Gravity does not just reverse on its own. Something is causing this, something up there." She pointed toward the cracked and glowing earth above us. "What is above the sky? What is past the stars? What would be hungry enough to flip the world upside down just to feed?" "Clara, stop. You are scaring yourself." "I am scaring myself because I am scared. We should all be scared. This is not natural. This is not an accident. Something wanted this to happen. Something wanted us to fall." I wanted to argue with her, wanted to tell her she was wrong, but I could not, because deep down, in a place I did not want to acknowledge, I felt it too. The pull was not random. It was not mechanical. It felt purposeful. It felt hungry. It wanted us. Around 3 in the morning, the pull got stronger. I felt it in my bones, a pressure that made my teeth ache and my eyes water. The cracks in the bathroom floor widened, and I could see the living room ceiling below us, could see straight through to the sky beyond my broken windows. Clara could not stand anymore. The force pressed her flat against the tiles, and she lay there gasping, her hand gripping mine so hard I thought she might break my fingers. Duke was flat on his belly, panting, too exhausted and terrified to even whimper. His eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. I closed my eyes and waited for the end. Waited for the floor to give way and send us tumbling into the infinite darkness. Waited to join all the others who had fallen, all the people who were still falling, rising through the atmosphere and into the void beyond. I thought about Will, probably driving toward Crestwood right now, despite what I had said. I thought about Pete and Linda, probably gone now, fallen into the sky together or separately. It did not matter which. I thought about the man from the hardware store whose name I had never learned, and the Morrison family with their 2 little kids, and everyone else in Crestwood who had stepped outside at the wrong moment or had not found something strong enough to hold on to. And I held Clara's hand and waited to join them. I woke to sunlight on my face. For a long moment, I did not understand what was happening. I was disoriented, confused, my body aching in places I did not know could ache. Then I realized I was lying on the floor, not the ceiling, the floor, the actual floor, the hardwood floor of my living room. Gravity was normal again. I sat up slowly, every muscle screaming in protest. Duke was beside me, alive, his tail wagging weakly when he saw me move. Clara was a few feet away, unconscious but breathing, her chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. I stood up on shaky legs and looked around my house. Everything that had been pressed against the ceiling had crashed back down when gravity returned. Furniture was shattered, walls were cracked, windows were broken. It looked like a bomb had gone off inside, which I suppose, in a way, it had. I stumbled outside, squinting in the morning light. Crestwood was destroyed, not by the gravity itself, but by the return of normal gravity. Everything that had been pinned to ceilings all over town had crashed back down to the floors. Houses were damaged, roofs had collapsed, trees had fallen. The streets were covered in debris. It looked like a war zone, like something out of a disaster movie, except it was real, and it was my home. And scattered across lawns and streets and rooftops were the things that had fallen into the sky and come back down. Cars, crushed from terminal velocity impacts, crumpled like aluminum cans. Pieces of houses, chunks of roofing and siding that had torn free during the inversion. And bodies. Dozens of bodies. People who had fallen into the sky and then dropped back to Earth when gravity returned. I recognized some of them. Neighbors, friends, people I had seen every day for 5 years. But there were not as many bodies as there should have been. I thought about all the people I had watched falling, all the figures rising into the darkness, getting smaller and smaller until they vanished against the stars. Hundreds of people, maybe more. Where were they? I looked up at the sky, clear and blue and perfectly ordinary, and I understood. The ones who had fallen far enough, who had risen high enough into the sky before gravity returned, they had not come back down. They were still up there, still falling upward through the void between the stars. Or maybe they had reached whatever was doing the pulling, whatever had caused the inversion in the first place. Either way, they were gone. They were not coming back. Help arrived within hours. Military helicopters, emergency vehicles, news crews from every major network. Crestwood and several other small towns across the region had been affected. A total of about 20 communities scattered across 3 states. Thousands of people were missing. Thousands more were dead. The official explanation was atmospheric anomaly, gravitational fluctuation, a freak occurrence that scientists were studying, that experts were analyzing, that would eventually be explained by some natural phenomenon no one had discovered yet. Words that meant nothing, explanations that explained nothing. But no one could really explain it. Not the scientists, not the government officials, not anyone. Because gravity does not just reverse. That is not how the universe works. Except sometimes, apparently, it does. I watched the news coverage from a Red Cross shelter. Clara beside me, Duke at my feet. The reporters talked about casualties, about missing persons, about the search for survivors. They showed footage from security cameras and cell phones, footage of people and cars and debris falling upward into the sky. They interviewed experts who used words like unprecedented and inexplicable and under investigation. They did not talk about the people who never came back down. They did not speculate about where those people might have gone, what might have happened to them, what might have been waiting for them in the darkness above the atmosphere. Some things, I suppose, are too terrible to say out loud. My brother Will found me at the shelter that afternoon. He had driven through the night, arrived just after dawn, and had been searching for me ever since. When he saw me, he ran across the shelter and hugged me so hard I thought he might crack my ribs. I told him what I had seen. The inverted world, the people falling into the stars, the cracks opening in the earth above us, the light that pulsed behind those cracks. He listened without interrupting, his face getting paler with every word. When I finished, he did not say anything. There was nothing to say. Some experiences are beyond words, beyond comfort, beyond anything except silent acknowledgement that the world is stranger and more terrible than we ever imagined. Before I left the shelter, Clara pulled me aside. She looked older than she had before the inversion, like she had aged 10 years in one night. Maybe we all had. I have been thinking about what happened, she said, about what it means. Clara, I do not think any of us can understand what it means. Maybe not, but I have a theory. She looked up at the ceiling of the shelter, then back at me. Gravity is what holds us to the earth. It is what keeps us from flying off into space, what anchors us to reality. And something turned that anchor upside down. Something that wanted to see what would happen if everything fell the other way. Something that wanted to see what would fall toward it. You think something did this on purpose? I think something was hungry, Clara said, and I do not think it is done. She held up her hand, palm down, and I saw it trembling slightly, not from fear, not from age, from something else. I still feel it sometimes, she said. Late at night, when everything is quiet, a pull, a lifting sensation in my chest, like part of me is still trying to rise, like something up there is still calling. I wanted to tell her she was imagining things, that it was just trauma, just her mind playing tricks on her. But I could not say the words, because I felt it too. I moved in with Will for a while after that. I could not go back to Crestwood, could not look at the ruined houses and the empty lots where neighbors used to live, could not look at the sky without feeling that terrible lifting sensation in my gut. Duke came with me, of course. He was quieter than he used to be, less playful, like part of him had been left behind in that inverted house. Some nights, he would wake up whimpering, his legs churning like he was still trying to find purchase on a ceiling that had become his floor. The feeling Clara described did not go away, no matter how far I traveled from Crestwood. I woke up some nights feeling light, feeling like my body wanted to rise off the mattress, like the gravity holding me down was weaker than it should be. I would grip the sheets and hold on until the sensation passed, my heart pounding, my breath coming in short gasps. The doctor said it was anxiety, post-traumatic stress. My nervous system stuck in fight or flight mode after the trauma of that night. They gave me pills and therapy and techniques for managing panic attacks. But I knew the truth. I knew what I felt. Sometimes, late at night, I stand by the window and look up at the stars. They look different to me now. Not beautiful, not inspiring, but hungry, patient, waiting. I think about all the people who fell too far that night. The ones who rose through the atmosphere and kept going, who fell into the void between the worlds and never stopped falling. I wonder if they are still out there somewhere, tumbling through the darkness, getting smaller and smaller until they are indistinguishable from the stars themselves. Or maybe they reached whatever was pulling them. Maybe they found out what was waiting above the sky, past the stars, in the empty, hungry dark. I do not know which possibility is worse. Clara calls me sometimes. She still lives in what is left of Crestwood, one of the few who stayed. She says the town is rebuilding, that new people are moving in, that life is slowly returning to normal. But she also says she still feels the pull. Every night, without fail, a gentle tug in her chest, a lightness in her bones, a whisper that she cannot quite hear telling her to let go, to rise, to come home. She says she has learned to ignore it. She says it gets easier with time. I'm not sure I believe her. Last week, I saw something on the news that made my blood run cold. A freak atmospheric event over a small town in the mountains. Witnesses reported objects floating, gravity behaving erratically, people losing their footing and rising into the air. It only lasted a few minutes. Only a handful of people fell into the sky before it stopped. But it happened. It is happening again. Maybe it never stopped. I lie in bed at night and feel that gentle pull in my chest, that lifting sensation that never quite goes away. I grip the mattress and I hold on, and I tell myself it is just anxiety, just trauma, just my nervous system misfiring. But part of me knows the truth. Something up there is hungry, something vast and patient and empty, waiting in the darkness above the sky. And someday, maybe soon, maybe years from now, it will reach down again. It will flip the world upside down and drink us into the stars. And this time, I might not find anything strong enough to hold on to. I look at the ceiling above my bed, and I wonder when it will become my floor again. I look at the sky outside my window, and I wonder when it will swallow me whole. The pull is still there. It is always there, waiting.